when in the FGS controlled climb or descend and approaching the MCP pre-selected altitude. Depending on the approaching vertical speed, the altitude acquire mode is entered and the level off initiated as necessary to hold the selected altitude. When deviating by more than 300 feet from the preset altitude. The 2 seconds tone comes on again, and the amber light flashes until the aircraft re-enters the 300 feet envelope. Or the altitude in the preset window is reset to within 300 feet of present aircraft altitude, or to more than 1,000 feet away from actual altitude. Altitude hold can be exited by pressing the altitude hold button if the preset altitude is 200 feet or more away from the actual altitude. The resulting mode is vertical speed, basic vertical in-flight mode. Note that a climb or descend away from the selected altitude is possible. Be aware, this might be dangerous, especially during descend. The corresponding auto throttle, AT, mode to altitude hold, vertical speed, or approach, is the auto throttle speed mode, IAS or Mach. In this mode, auto throttle aims to control to the MCP selected speed. Assuming straight and steady flight, auto throttle in speed mode advances the thrust levers as necessary up to the selected thrust regime if the selected speed is dialed up. When at speed, thrust is reduced to a pre-calculated value to maintain this speed. When dialing the speed down again, AT in the speed mode reduces thrust down to flight idle to reduce speed to the selected value. At speeds greater than Mach 0.50, the changeover button, CO, at the MCP becomes active. If pressed, the controlled speed changes from IAS to Mach and vice versa. When in AT, speed mode and a speed lower than Vmin selected, The autothrottle will control speed to Vmin. An A is displayed in front of the selected speed, which indicates alpha floor protection in progress. Again, this feature is only active with the autothrottle engaged in speed mode, IAS or Mach. With gear or flaps extended, autothrottle speed mode controls to a speed 5 knots below VFE or VGE when speeds above the applicable VFE or VGE are selected. When flap or gear extension is initiated with the autothrottle engaged in speed mode at speeds above VFE or VGE, the A in the speed window appears and autothrottle will reduce speed to 5 knots below the relevant maximum speed. We now look at the lateral modes. No other lateral mode has been selected after takeoff. The FGS is still in the track mode, TRK. To get out of the track mode, any other lateral mode can be selected. We select heading mode by pushing the heading select button on the MCP. Observe heading mode. HDG is indicated in the FMA now. The pre-selected heading can be changed by the concentric heading bug on the MCP. The aircraft will turn to the MCP pre-selected heading on the shortest way. If heading mode is already engaged when changing the selected heading, the aircraft will turn in that direction in which the heading knob is turned, even if the heading change is greater than 180 degrees. In that case, the aircraft would turn the long way around. When the heading mode is engaged, the outer cubic knob is active, which allows the bank angle to be limited. Bank angle limits from 10 to 30 degrees are possible, in steps of 5 degrees. However, if 30 degrees are selected, the system controls to 28 degrees. When in the heading mode and pushing the heading select button again, the FGS enters the basic lateral mode in flight, which is the roll mode. This default lateral mode will also be entered upon engagement of autopilot or flight director if both were off before. The VOR mode enables the aircraft to capture and follow a selected radial to or from a tuned VOR station. Here, we have tuned Hotel Alpha Mike VOR with a frequency of 113.10 MHz and a course of 60 degrees selected. That means radial 240 inbound to the station. A VOR radial can be captured from any other lateral mode except approach. It is normal to use heading select mode to set up and intercept heading. Pushing the VOR LOC button arms the mode, which is confirmed by a white VOR1 or VOR2 annunciation in the FMA field on the PFDs. The armed VOR mode can be disarmed by a second push on the VOR LOC button, or by selecting an ILS frequency instead of the VOR frequency. Here, we arm it again on Hamburg Radial 220 inbound. VOR1 is displayed in white as the number 1 systems were selected as navigational master. The mode transitions from arm to engage when the computer capture criteria of the selected course has been satisfied. The white armed annunciation is removed and the appropriate green annunciation is shown.